Good morning, everyone. I will call the County Board of Commissioners regular meeting to order on this day, Tuesday, June 23rd at 8:30 a.m. We begin our meeting with the pledge. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Madam Chair. Thank you. I will be requesting that we split the closed session into, just for time considerations for the attorney involved, so that we have one closed session at the beginning of the meeting with counsel for the, to address the data breach, and then one closed session at the time normally allotted to the attorneys for the closed session regarding the tennis courts litigation.
How does that fall time-wise on the agenda?
So that item number 4 would be split into 2 different closed sessions. We would have a motion to close the meeting right away for the discussion on the threatened litigation regarding the data breach, and then a motion to reopen, and then following, I believe we normally fall after human resources.
Okay.
Then there would be a second closed session to address the pending tennis courts litigation.
And will that session be up in the courtroom as well?
If the ITV room is not available, I believe we're up for both of those.
Yeah. The ITV room is reserved for like 9 to noon today, so.
Okay, we'll be up there.
Not for us, though.
So I guess my question is, once we're done with the first closed session on the data, do we come back here?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. A motion to approve the agenda as presented with the understanding of the 2 closed sessions.
Support?
Just to be clear, that's as amended, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. At this time, we do have time for public comment period. They can appear before the county board with their concerns. We have no one in the audience this morning, other than, did anyone on the board receive any comments? No. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda items to approve as whole. We do have, we don't have any claims, and then we do have minutes from the June 9th meeting. Otherwise, that is all that we have. So motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll support that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. At this time, then, we will begin our closed session. Motion to close the meeting pursuant of Minnesota State Statute 13D.05, Subdivision 3B, to discuss the following pending or threatened litigation matters in regarding a data breach and the Cook County versus Upper Midwest Athletic Construction Company, Incorporated.
Support?
I'm sorry.
It's going to be the one,
Yep.
the first part.
Just
of
item
that.
1.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll support that amendment.
Support the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. We have returned from our closed session, and now we motion to open up our regular board meeting. Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to reconvene a regular board meeting?
Support.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We will move into land services. We have one of our new employees. Welcome to our board meeting.
Oh, thank you so much.
They
Good
put you
morning,
right to
Commissioners.
work.
Yes. All right, well, we'll get right into it. The Planning Commission met on June 10th, and we have 2 conditional use permit requests for you today. The first one is from Isaak Beran, and it is a conditional use permit to allow a home business in the FAR1 zone district at 330 Ball Club Road. Mr. Beran has been operating his business as a home occupation for several years, but he is looking to add an employee, and that will move his business from a home occupation to a home business, and that does require a conditional use permit. His business is a log home building and restoration business. The conditional use permit would allow for up to 5 employees, but at this time, Mr. Beran has indicated that his current intention is to hire just 1 employee, and in his application, he said he does not anticipate that the addition of the single employee will change the number of deliveries of logs to his property each year, so not a lot of change kind of in the function of the property. Home business is listed as a conditional use in the FAR1 zone district, which is outlined in section 4.05B4. Land Services and the Planning Commission didn't receive any public comment on this application, either in writing or in person at the public hearing on June 10th. At the same hearing, the Planning Commission determined that the use was compatible with the neighborhood and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request. And I'll refer you to your packet for the criteria that the Planning Commission used for that recommendation, and that can be found under the findings section. And also in your packet is the list of conditions set up for the CUP. At the hearing, Mr. Beran said that he agreed to all those proposed conditions, so none of those should be an obstacle for him. And again, there was no public comment in opposition to this application, and the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the conditional use permit for Mr. Beran to move his business from a home occupation to a home business and hire an employee.
We'll open it up for questions or comments. Commissioner Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having attended the meeting that the Planning Commission had, one thing that you might have a question about under conditions is item 2, hours of operation, starting at 6 a.m. But I want to make it clear that currently that business is operating at 6 a.m. That is not a change in hours, and the neighborhood seems to be appreciative of that, tolerant of that, and there have been no complaints. So I just wanted to let you know 6 a.m. is not an earlier time. That's how they've been operating.
Right, and Mr. Beran did say, Mr. Beran, no S, did say at that meeting too that he was specifically applying for those hours of operation because the Planning Commission did ask, because there are some other industrial businesses in the area that have different hours of operation, and he said he was sticking with those current hours kind of in the effort to maintain what he's already doing, because there haven't been complaints with neighbors.
Right.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Anyone like to make a motion to Commissioner Sullivan?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution for the conditional use permit in accordance with our zoning ordinance 37, section 4.05B4, to allow a home business in the FAR1 zone district at 330 Ball Club Road with the findings and the conditions as noted.
Support.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank Thank you on that. Moving on.
All right, so this second one is an item that you have seen before, but is returning to you for this meeting, and that is the WTTC Land Management Company LLC, and requesting an amendment to the existing conditional use permit for the Humphrey Gravel Pit at 224 Ball Club Road to expand the active open pit area from 10 to 15 acres and to allow gravel washing operations as a conditional use. And just to remind you, and for the sake of the public, the site is located north of the Cook County Airport between Ball Club Road and Benegami Lake. And at the May 13th meeting of the Planning Commission, they determined that the use was compatible with the location of the pit and with 30 proposed conditions of approval, and they did recommend approval of the request. At your May 26th meeting, you requested that the Planning Commission further consider a couple of aspects of their proposal, including hours of operation, noise mitigation options, and wash plant operations. And the Planning Commission discussed the application again at that June 10th meeting. Aaron Holgren, who's the Vice President of Operations for Northland Constructors, was present at the meeting. He talked about ways that the company is already using operational practices intended to reduce noise impacts, including maintaining earthen berms and conducting operations at lower elevations within the pit when feasible. He said that once a pit area is established, much of the noise is diverted upwards by these measures. The Planning Commission did briefly touch on noise generated by safety equipment, including backup alarms, and the Commission agreed that compromising established safety practices and industry standards around safety alerts in an effort to reduce noise would not be appropriate due to the increased risk to workers. At the meeting, Mr. Holgram agreed to adjusting the hours of operation to a slightly shorter day on Saturday, making the hours of operation 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, and then no operations on Sundays and on holidays. Additionally, he agreed that a 5-year interim use permit for wash plant operations would be acceptable and consistent with similar approvals at other locations. Mr. Holgram explained that the washing operation was an as-needed element of the pit usage depending on the specific projects they've been contracted for, and the Planning Commission discussed 5 years as the length of the interim use permit because of the variability of washing activity and as an appropriate amount of time to get a sense of the impact of that activity on the area. On June 10th, the Planning Commission again recommended approval of the CUP, and I'll refer you to your packet for updated conditions, drawing your attention specifically to the revisions made to conditions 12 and 13, and the specific listing of noise mitigation practices in condition 6. For the criteria the Planning Commission used to evaluate the application, please refer to the findings section in your packet. And as one additional note on this application, because we have already used the one-time 60-day extension on the CUP application, and because the July Planning Commission meeting will take place after that extension has elapsed, today you will kind of have to make a decision. You won't have the option to send it back to the Planning Commission. You can either choose to approve it or deny it. You could choose to discuss it again on July 14th at your next business meeting, but there won't be another opportunity for the Planning Commission to discuss it before that time period runs out. And so again, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend your approval of this conditional use permit with the amendments made to those several conditions, and including allowing the washing operations through an interim use permit. And there is a representative of the, the applicant here today as well, so if there are additional questions, he said he's willing to come up to answer them.
I have a question about the hours. Legal holidays unless specifically authorized by the county. So for instance, the courthouse and buildings were closed Juneteenth on a Friday. Or July 4th is on a Saturday, so they'll be closed here on the 3rd. Does that mean that they'll cooperate with that type of condition?
Well, that's a great question for our applicant.
Okay.
Sure, good morning. I'm Jeremy Carlson. I'm with Northland Constructors out of Duluth. WTTC is our parent company, or part of our parent company, so that's our relationship to the property. As to the holidays, as a contractor, we find different organizations we work for and work with recognize different holidays. So whatever the appropriate holiday to recognize in Cook County, we have no issue working that way. Some agencies are willing to consider allowing work on certain holidays, so we request that at times. And I think we would treat this the same way. So whatever the appropriate holiday is to recognize, we would follow that for Cook County.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Commissioner Gamble?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. I appreciate the fact that when this came before the board, our discussion, and it went back to the Planning Commission, and appreciate the extra work on the part of the Planning Commission and staff in bringing this issue to them for review and coming back to us. And that's appreciated, a process that demonstrates we hear and we respond. With that, I'd make a motion to approve the resolution for the conditional use permit for an increase from 10 to 15 acres of active excavation in a gravel pit adjacent to Cook County 27, and the addition of a wash plant at 2024 Ball Club Road, Zone FAR 1, with findings and conditions.
I'll support that. Have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for
Thanks so much,
waiting
Commissioners.
patiently for us to get back.
No problem. Beautiful day to drive up north.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Next, we'll move on to Human Resources. She was here and then she disappeared. Maybe she thought of something she needed.
I'll send her a quick message.
Here she comes.
There she is.
Okay, here we go.
I was like, oh, I can take the break really quick to run to the restroom.
We run a tight ship. You've got to get there when you
Oh my
need to.
God, I was like,
You
okay.
had to wait 5 seconds.
I know. It's like they're still talking. I can run quick and come back.
Right. Good morning.
Good morning. Catching my breath. Okay, so this morning I have a few personnel policies to bring and present, request approval for. So in your agenda packet, I've included everything, but just kind of a high-level summation. So the 3 policies that I have today is a revised Family Medical Leave Act policy. So this complies with the FMLA. We already have an FMLA policy. This just, it's just needed updating, a little more beefing up. Otherwise, the FMLA has not really changed much, but just want to make sure that our policy continues to be revised and updated to ensure ongoing compliance. And then there are 2 new policies, actually. We've got kind of the easier one, I would say, is personal appliances. So this addresses what would be considered a personal appliance and what could be brought here and used in the workplace, but for safety reasons. And the electrical pole, I'm like totally going way out of my scope of work here. I'm presenting for Brooke. So based on electrical pull for certain appliances, it dictates which outlet they should be safely plugged into. So personal appliances that would be included in this policy, there's a bulleted list. These items, again, for the safety reasons, need to be plugged into an outlet. They can't be plugged into like a power strip or an extension cord. So that's why I'm bringing that policy today, and that is something that our safety committee has been working on. And then we have a workplace violence policy. So we don't currently have a workplace violence policy. Again, something that's just brought up out of the safety of our employees and members of our public to provide guidance on what do we do about workplace violence, because violence can unfortunately occur in the workplace. Or even off work site if we have members of our staff that are out in the field. So how to identify it, how to address it, how to report it, and then any of the follow-up that's needed as well.
Yes, Administrator Trumbull.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison. I also wanted to mention with the personal appliance policy that we did an audit of the building as well to see where things were plugged in and what changes we need to make. And so we're through the audit and we've made most of the changes. I think we're still waiting on some of our partners to gather that information that are housed within the building. But just wanted to make sure you're all aware that we took those steps to ensure that we are in compliance with our own draft policy as we move forward.
Oh, and I could just add to, so kind of processes, these policies have been through several reviews with personnel, the personnel committee, safety committee, at least for 2 of the 3, and then our employment attorney, Diane Ebert, as well.
Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Allison. I have a question, not on content, but format. I know we talked about formatting in both the Personnel Committee and before the board about trying to go through and how we would move forward with our policies in a folder, so when we change policies, it's easier to change them, and then also just a consistent format. And my question pertains to, in looking at these documents, definitions. So let's just say that when we look at how we identify headings, paragraphs, bullet pointed items and everything, that part of a policy manual that makes it easy to be digested by employees is to have that similar formatting. And it's just not just we read, but it is the format, it is the type style, it's the weight we apply. So my question pertains to definition. Under the personal appliances, under definitions, which is on page 85 in our packet, it has appliance. And that's an italicized word. If we look at page 81 in our packet, under definition, workplace violence, sometimes we're using the word in the context of the paragraph that explains the policy moving forward. Sometimes we're defining what is workplace violence. So, if this is clear, what I'm saying is that the consistency in how we treat the formatting in that regard, if definitions, will it be bold italicized when it appears, or as we see on the workplace violence under definition, we have workplace violence. That could just be referring to it in the context, but it's not a definition of what it is. So I'll say this and then I'll be done. Purpose, policy, definition. Because definitions, when we see it appear in different places, how we treat that. That's my only recommendation, is just saying, maybe we want to look at that. Are we going to, every time we initially define the word, will we do it bold italic, or how will we do that? That was just throwing out a thought.
I'd like to make a motion to approve all 3, the Family and Medical Leave Act, Workplace Violence, and the Personal Appliances Personnel Policies, sending it to the editors for
Just
formatting.
how that's used in context.
But yeah.
I certainly support the
Yeah.
motion to approve. Just had that question.
Oh, it was a question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, just had that
Oh,
question.
okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
I apologize, I didn't realize it was a question, I just thought you were expressing.
That's right.
Oh,
because
sorry, I thought it was a statement too. I didn't understand that it was a question.
Well, I was just asking in the formatting whether or not, how we're looking at
So
that.
I'm going to be maybe a little defensive in this.
Okay.
I think very much depending on the specific policy and the content of the policy, that's where you're going to see deviations. I do try to keep with a similar format with all. I would prefer to have the authority to determine the template and the formatting. But I can take a look at it.
Well, it's not a question of who has the authority to do it. It was just a question I had because we've invested time and we discussed this in personnel, committee, and here is just when we're formatting, I just noted that there was discrepancy in that. And so I'm just saying, that's the only thing I
So
noticed.
just that what you're stating is the word is bold and italicized in one document and regular type in another.
Yeah, so it's made, when you say purpose, in every document, you're showing purpose and you're showing policy, but when it gets to definitions, I see a variation. So for consistency, I'm just saying, how do you want to treat definition,
Yeah.
that's all.
And I can speak to this a little bit and just say that as we're going through the policy updates with each one of our departments, because some of our other departments also have countywide policy. I'll use MIS, for example. They have a completely different template and format for their policies than we do within HR. And so what I've asked as the administrator is that what's important to me is making sure that that first box is filled out, that we have who is the owner of the policy, when was it effective, what date was it effective, and when was it revised, so that we have that historical information as we move forward, and so that we also know when we want to revisit the policies and update them, so that we don't get behind on policy review and renewal. I've also asked that we have the purpose, we have definitions, and we have the policy language. Some of our policies also require a procedure, and so that would be a separate document that would outline what the procedures are for the policy. Outside of that, we haven't talked about making sure that everything is exactly the same within the policies, because right now, each department does look very different. So I want to get us closer to it being as consistent as possible. I think we can look at the definitions and just see if we want it to be bold, italicized, or not, and provide that editing that you had mentioned, Commissioner Mills. But outside of that, I'm hoping that, to Allison's point, we still can allow each department to have a little bit of leniency with how they develop the formatting of the policies, since right now they are very different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Again, I want to apologize. I didn't know it was a question. I didn't mean to.
Yeah,
So I
no.
retract that motion, just to
Okay.
make sure everything's clear there.
Okay.
And I agree, formatting is important, and I just didn't think it was something we need to resolve
No,
beyond.
it's just a
beyond
comment, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying, it just,
Yeah.
we're asked to review these to
Yeah.
approve, and that's the only thing I noted.
Yeah.
We've worked hard on formattings, and because it is an area that I've been involved with, personnel manuals and everything else, it's just trying
Oh, yeah.
to let the formatting be intuitive to what you're trying to communicate verbiage-wise, so
Absolutely.
anyway.
No, I
So you can make
agree.
your motion then.
Well, and I also wanted to apologize because the editing was a little bit of a joke, because we don't have an editorial staff. It's
We don't,
helpful,
but we
but
can
it's,
edit it.
yes.
We can edit it and make sure that it's as consistent as possible.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Mills, you made a motion to approve all of these three different entities. Did you also add the editing, or do you want to add it, or
I-
skip it?
I'll make a new motion. I retract the old motion. New motion is to approve the Family and Medical Leave Act, the Workplace Violence, and the Personal Appliances Personal Policies.
I support.
Okay, motion by Mills and second by Gamble.
I also want to recognize just the work that has already been put into it. I know it's a lot, and a lot of wordsmithing and going around and getting things legal and all that, so I just really appreciate that time and energy.
Right. Motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Hey,
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Allison.
Allison.
Allison?
Moving on now to Auditor Powers, talking about the airport hangar.
Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, but I think we had moved and the only reason why it matters from a time perspective is that we have an attorney on a court schedule this morning, so if we can do the other closed session,
Which one?
if we can get a
Closed
motion to
session.
close the
Oh.
meeting for the sub-2, the tennis courts litigation.
I'll make a motion to close the meeting pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subdivision 3B to discuss the pending or threatened litigation matters of Cook County versus Upper Midwest Athletic Construction Incorporated.
Support.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
But now where do we go?
We'll all get our
upstairs.
steps in by going
Thank you, everyone. We are back here and ready to reconvene our meeting. Is there a motion to reconvene?
Motion to reconvene?
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Both same sign. Okay. After the discussion that we've had this morning, we have made a resolution to move forward with our situation of Cook County versus Midwest. So we have a resolution that Commissioner Sullivan wrote.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the expenditure of up to $10,000, not to exceed $10,000, for funding to come out of our community center infrastructure line item regarding the potential litigation and an alternate dispute or an ADR for threatened litigation against Upper Midwest Athletic Construction Incorporated.
Madam Chair, did we use the language in, is that an expert?
That's correct.
Yeah. We need that in there?
For our county attorney, that's what she would like.
Yes,
So that's in the motion?
correct.
Go ahead.
Firstly, I'll just support it.
Yeah.
Now for discussion.
I'm sorry, did you, maybe I misheard, did you
So up to-
reference the expert?
Up to $10,000 to pay for an expert and for it to come out of the community center infrastructure budget.
Perfect.
Do you have that?
Okay.
Okay.
And that's what I'm supporting.
I just want to make sure the language relative to the expert was in the
Absolutely.
motion, yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all on that with your time. Okay, so then we're going to hear from Auditor Powers on the airport hangar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a request to approve the work order for the airport hangar right-of-way taxi lane reconstruction. Work order 2026-01 RSNH to work for, as the construction administrator and project representative for that hangar road taxi lane reconstruction for a fee of $160,968. And this is all subject to receipt of a federal grant for the project, which we're currently working on. That's not unusual in some of these, that we are authorizing things prior to the grant. That's the federal and state process, not unusual. So the county approved a work order, just if you remember this coming up recently, for the design and bidding services back in March of 2025. And that work, of course, is complete. And for this project, there had to be an independent fee analysis for RSNH's design and construction administration fee. And so that's been done because this is required for any design type contract, design construction administration that exceeds $100,000. And and we also we've already approved a grant of 175, or have an approved grant of 175,000 from IRRB that'll help fund the local costs. And we're applying for the state and federal now, so.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just if people are interested, I brought the capital improvement plan that shows where this fits in with everything we'll be doing over the next 20 years. I know a lot of you were at the open house that we had for the airport a little over a year ago, but I thought if anyone wanted to look at that paperwork, I would bring it.
Thank you.
And this will be one of many instances where we request some action by the board prior to receiving funds from the FAA or MnDOT Aeronautics.
Yeah, and this project is their new process. In the past, we've done all of the design and construction all in one grant application, one contract, and now they've split it out. So you do the design work in one contract, one set of grants, and then you do the construction with another contract with your RSNH, your contractor, and for the construction. They separate them now. Twice the work, but hopefully better results. We'll see.
Any further questions or comments? Commissioner Sullivan?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve by motion a work order 2026-01 for RSNH for construction, administration, and resident project representative services for Hangar Road Taxilane reconstruction as defined at a fee of $160,968, subject to receipt of our federal grant.
Support.
Mr. White, support? Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
And related to that are the bids for the reconstruction. So they took, RSNH along with airport staff, myself, took bids on June 11th, and you can see the results in the attachment. And asking for approval of the lowest bid. RSNH has done the analysis and recommends that Northland Constructors of Duluth with the lowest bid, but not by much. That's about the closest bid I can think of for that size of contract, $288 on $1.4 million. It was pretty,
Yeah.
Okay, questions or comments? Commissioner Sullivan?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the low bid of $1,443,500 from Northland Constructors of Duluth for the Taxilane reconstruction project.
Support.
Motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Brady and Commissioner Sullivan. As you say, we'll be looking at future projects quite often. Okay, next we'll move on to Administrator Treble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, my first item is the Tofte Transfer Station operations transition, and you may all recall that we had a discussion at our Committee of the Whole regarding this issue, and so I am looking for a decision today. Our recommendation is to abolish the position, which we have the authority to do per our personnel policies, and make it effective July 23rd and allow the incumbent 30-day notice. So just kind of going backwards into the history of this, as you know, the Tofte Transfer Station operations are transitioning to North Shore Waste. That will likely happen the beginning of July once the transfer station is completed. And so we've been working with Dustin Hanson of North Shore Waste on that transition. And as a result of the operations shifting, we need to make a decision regarding our county employee that currently is working at that site. In addition to the county making or working towards a resolution on this, we've been also working, like I said, with Dustin Hanson. He has posted the position and has provided that information to the employee as well.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Gamble?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I appreciate the fact that when we brought this before the board at a committee of the whole, that this process of following policy is reinforced prior to it coming before the board to move forward. And so I appreciate that awareness and the fact that we had opportunity to address this coming prior to this being on our agenda. With that, I support the recommendation by motion to abolish the position effective July 23rd to allow a 30-day notice to the incumbent for the Tofte Transfer Station operations position.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimously. Continue on.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So my next item is the Ehlers Financial Management Proposal, and this I would say is a joint item between Auditor Powers and myself. So we have been working with Ehlers on putting together a proposal for us to help us to update our financial management policies. And so the proposal is to update up to 10 policies, and it is an hourly rate, with a not-to-exceed amount. And so the work would include reviewing and researching each policy area, drafting newer, revising existing policies, reviewing the recommended policy changes with county staff, revising any policies based on stakeholder feedback, and perhaps presenting recommended policy amendments to the county board as needed. So with that, I also wanted to mention that I did have one commissioner request that this be a discussion item for today and not a decision item, so that we had an opportunity to answer any questions and then bring it forward in the future as a decision item. This is not time sensitive. We could certainly add it for a decision at the next meeting if that is how the board would like to proceed. And just to give you an idea of some of the policies that we would look at having updated, Auditor Powers and I have met and started a list of some of the policies that we would want to work with Ehlers on. One is non-mandated services, our loan policy, debt policy, credit card policy, procurement policy, travel policy, and per diem policy. We have not fully vetted that with our management team yet, but those were some ideas that we had of policies that perhaps we could look at working with Ehlers on. So I want to turn it over to Auditor Powers to see if he has anything else he'd like to add.
No, I think that summarizes it. We've had policies in place, but not that volume tells you everything, but ours are fairly sparse. And you've seen some of the policies that have changed, personnel, et cetera, that cover everything, more closely cover everything that can happen. And our policies, a lot of them, they don't. They haven't, we've gotten by with them, but I think it's probably time to, be more comprehensive.
I should also mention that Ehlers has worked with a number of other counties, and so this is an area of expertise for them, and that's why we would be leaning on them for their assistance.
We've had a long experience with them, so I think it's reasonable that we engage them too again. Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the fact that this is coming before us. I would say that policies are certainly a component of structure, and with Administrator Treble coming in, that was something that we've had discussions on, just saying that you can have changing staff, but an organization that has created a healthy structure, those people fit in better than when you don't have healthy structure, then you don't get consistency. So these are all good things amidst everything else that is on our administrator's plate. My thought in this regard relative to structure is that we look at state statute that governs and we look at our policies that we establish. Just having a discussion as those that enable policy, elected representatives of the community, I think it would be a good idea to bring this issue to a committee of the whole so we can look at this. If we look at policies overall, how many policies do we have in place that are reflective of what we see, let's just say, of the counties within the state? And are we encompassing all of the areas that we think either we need updating or we don't even have an existing policy? I remember, and we just came out of a meeting on this, when it came to a policy that drives contractual relationships with construction companies. And do we have a policy? And Brady responded back and says, no, we don't have a policy. I said, well, if we don't have a policy, then we should find a good policy and operate as though it was our policy, because we need something to discipline this process of signing contracts when we are spending tax dollars on projects. So I also, having been part of the courses with Results of America, I had talked to them, and they have a evaluation policy guide that they put out I just think this is a foundational issue that if nothing more, the commissioners have more information on to understand as we adopt this as part of our structure moving forward, which then would be communicated to our staff. So everybody's on board with the value of why we put these things in place. So that's my thought.
Administrator Turbo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do want to mention that part of our discussion with Ehlers was to also help us to identify any gaps.
Okay.
Any areas where we don't currently have policies in the financial realm where we should. So I should have mentioned that, but that's
Sure.
also part of the proposal.
Good.
And I'm happy to bring more information to the board related to our policy development. I just need to know what would be helpful to everyone.
Would you be in favor of doing a committee of the whole on this then? Or we get information at the next board meeting, since we don't have a time frame right now?
We can absolutely add it to the next committee of the whole. Outside of the proposal, I guess I'm just looking for some guidance on what other information would be helpful for me to bring forward at that time.
Commissioner Sullivan, you had your name up?
I just had a question about what other information would we need? You know, I feel very comfortable with what we've been presented here. My interest is getting some policy in place as we are looking at setting a preliminary levy and we're setting our final levy, having some policies to help us as we make our decisions, and particularly with that mandated or non-mandated funding.
And I would just like to say the process, like, we're seeing this now and having some discussion, and I would rather that we take a vote on it in the next time. It's not like, we shouldn't be presented with something and be expected to act. Even though it all seems like a good idea right now, I think we should follow the process we're trying to have, and at the next meeting, then we go for a vote. And if we have questions in between, we can ask Brady or our administrator to fill in the gaps. But without a doubt, we need to have financial policies.
Yeah, and
help with getting good financial policies, so.
Yeah, I'll just give you one example, like, yeah, we don't go blindly into, contracts. It's all in state statute. So I have several files on the bidding and on construction contracts and bonds and notices, and et cetera. They're all in separate files. I know where they are. I find them. It's probably not the way to go forward, especially when you have new personnel, et cetera. So it's not just, that's just one example, though. It's the kind of thing where you need to bring it all together into one, and you might as well do it in a better way. You could do it yourself if you had enough time, for sure. You'd start one, et cetera. But why not take what the experts already know is working everywhere else for something like that?
And if I can add to what Auditor Powers has said, is one part of succession planning for every position, not just within his department, but is making sure that all the information isn't just up here in people's personal files, but like he mentioned, getting that out in a way where it's available to everyone. And so part of this is also leveraging the institutional knowledge that Auditor Powers has in his position, the knowledge that Ehlers has with their financial management and the work they've done with other counties, and helping us to get it documented so it's clear to everyone what the procedures and policies are within the financial area. And we're doing this within HR. You saw a couple HR policies today. So this is just a more comprehensive way of doing several at once instead of bringing them forward one at a time, like we've done with our HR policies. And with our HR policies, we're having those reviewed by our HR attorney, who is the expert in that space and providing guidance and feedback for us. And so this is the same, where we're leveraging another outside entity to provide us that guidance and feedback.
Commissioner Mills?
It makes good sense to me. I don't want to wait just to wait. If there are things we need to think about, absolutely, we should do that. But But this is, I thought, something we discussed already, like just not specifically this proposal. Like I thought we, as a board, had talked about the need to really update our policies, and I know the auditor's office is fairly strapped for time and resources, and so I want to be as supportive as I can. But if we do need more time, it isn't an emergency, but because of succession planning, I don't want to just wait to wait, so.
If I can add to that, this is a strategic priority. It's on our strategic
Yep.
plan to update our policies and procedures, and so this does directly relate to that, which I wasn't here when the strategic plan was updated, but I assume there was a lot of discussion that took place around what that meant.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it certainly isn't to wait and to delay. I think it's
No,
just
yeah.
important, it's fundamental, like we have in Committee of the Whole, where we have a department head or an entity come in and they give us a presentation that gives us context to understand, and I think that's the ownership I think that elected officials need to have, is a context to understand this. You can do it just based upon your own knowledge, just as Brady has said, that his knowledge, accumulated knowledge, and I didn't mean to infer that Brady wasn't doing his due diligence. I'm just saying we didn't have a policy to define it. But I think that you can come in and you can say, it'd be the same way with data-based budgeting, the evidence-based budgeting. One of the things, and I probably said it before, going into Arrowhead Corrections, when I sat on that board and went to a MACAC, which is the corrections annual meeting statewide, evidence-based, boy, that just struck me, because the evidence that we use to support decisions was hugely important. So this is an example of saying, policies, how important are policies to you? And why do we have policies in place? And we've had discussions this morning that address the need for clear direction. And so I think it because it is structural, and we just had another meeting talking about structural issues that now we're trying to mitigate the fallout. We need to know, how do we evaluate policy and put policies in place that are going to benefit us moving forward, whether we're here or not here. And there's some directions in that regard, and I think it's a significant enough issue that we need to just at least have it come before us and have a discussion. If you ask me what it says the importance of policy, how policy practically plays out, how we evaluate what we need given a county this size, and things like that in the presentation would just help inform us, so that we own the support for policies because we knowingly have had a discussion.
And we have, right?
No, we haven't.
We haven't had a discussion about the need for policies.
Well, we've generically as a statement, but let's just say that when it comes to evidence-based budgeting, that the term has been out there, but the discipline, the process, and the understanding how it plays out practically, we have not dug in on that.
Well, yeah, I think that's a different thing.
But it is. I'm using it as an example to say that is policy important? Yes. Do we want to update our policy? Yes. Okay, so let's understand this whole policy. That's why, like this evaluation policy guide that Results for America puts out, I mean, when I saw it on the agenda, I went in on their website, I looked, and then I called them and talked to them, and they, facilitate things in this regard pro bono, but, and I'm not pushing that they do it, but there's a lot of information on it, and we have not had a discussion in depth about this and understand and appreciate it to the extent that I think we take greater ownership of it. That's all I'm saying. Put it on a committee of the whole, and then come from that with a better perspective and understanding moving into the motion. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, I thought I had a good understanding, and now I feel like I don't. Like, I thought we had a discussion about wanting to update policies, and we started with HR, but we know throughout the organization, and as Administrator Treble-Harbisma said, is in our strategic plan. So I thought we were trying to take steps to really address our policy gaps.
I would not disagree with the fact that we're taking steps. I'm just thinking that given the fact that we're now going to bring somebody in to do the overall evaluation, whatever, I think that
A trusted expert.
This is something that we should have on the committee of the whole before it comes here. And it's not an assessment that is made based upon a practice, meaning that we've said before, let's say somebody comes in and they want money for this, and this is the first that's coming to us. We said, no, we've got to go through a process that allows us to vet some things. I'm not saying it because we need to be consistent and disciplined. I'm saying it because this is significant. I think there's things we should discuss so that there's a greater understanding and ownership of it moving before motion. That's what I'm saying. And what happens with more eyes on the table, that is something that is structurally, fundamentally important, that we were entrusted with that responsibility, having that discussion when we go to do it. We've done our due diligence on this as another component of making a motion to address this issue. So it's, I mean.
Like, I feel like we can have discussion now and decide, but.
Yeah, well, this isn't, this is the problem that we have when we have things come before us. The discussion isn't to take place at the board meeting where you're supposed to be making a decision. It's the information where we roll up our sleeves and we talk through these things and we understand, we have a better context. So when we do make a motion, and you can watch different motion boards that are entrusted with responsibility to make decisions, and they'll come up number 444, vote, done. That's because they've had previous discussion that understands things, so it doesn't take a lot of discussion at a board meeting. But anyway, I'm just saying it'd be helpful for us.
So for an example, say that Administrator Treble-Harbisma brought this to our last committee of the whole, and much like we had with the termination that we had, or the abolishment, rather, like we did today. There was some good discussion at the committee of the whole. I believe we could have had that discussion here today in about short order. And so it's not about.
We don't know that. We don't know
You're right.
that, respectfully. We don't know that.
You're right. We don't know that, but
There are
that's what.
times when you could have, and there's
Excuse me.
times you aren't, but that
Excuse me.
really isn't the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree that we can't know that, but I believe that we could have had a discussion today and gotten through that in pretty short order, because it seemed pretty like, this is what statute is, this is what our policy is, the manual, this is what we have to do. It's nice to have, some time to think about that with touchy issues. I just don't think that there's going to be more presented and more discussion necessary to decide whether or not Ehlers advising us on our policies. I mean, I'm very happy to talk more generally about policies, but sometimes people get frustrated with government with taking too long. Sometimes people say it goes too fast. I think there's time in these meetings to discuss any issues any questions that we might have. And if there isn't time, then we can move on to a committee of the whole. But that's what I'm trying to figure out, like, what more? You're saying we need, so what I'm hearing you saying is we need to have a more broad, general discussion about policies before we take action on this area of policies, or is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, just, again, this came to me before I did this, but it's because I'm researching it, because it is a fundamental and structural thing that we've talked about before with administrative stuff.
Exactly.
And so if you look at the outline of this, if all of the things that are outlined that's in your evaluation moving forward, saying, we can say we're going to bring somebody in to construct something or something to do it, understanding the context and have examples where other communities have done this and what the result benefit of that. We can make our assumptions as to what we think all of this is going to be. It's better to understand and have a discussion that allows for us to have greater ownership. Do I believe that we need to update our policy? You betcha we need to update our policies. Not only do we need to update them, we need to abide by them and use them, which is why the position at the Tofte station was an application of policy, because our administrator has eyes to see that and brought that in.
Yeah.
It went fast, yes, but we don't know that. But there is a discipline to saying, wait a minute, commissioners, we can look at it this way, we can look at it that way, but we have a policy that defines what we can do. So I'm going to put it here so we can discuss this, and then we'll move forward to have a motion. And I'm just saying, it's good to have those discussions, especially something as weighty as this.
Did you discuss with Administrator Trebel-Halbersma about the evaluation policy guide?
When I had contacted, I just said, I'd like to see this go to a committee of the whole, yeah. And I could say, this isn't what is driving it, this is something that.
You keep holding it up.
I know that, but this isn't what isn't driving it. It, obviously, if I have a discussion with Results America relative to budget and everything else, I mean, each of us as commissioners can attend committees, we can go to workshops, AMC, NACO, whatever, and come back and say, oh my goodness, I'm become aware of this, I'm so, have a different perspective on this. I wish that was something that was shared and owned by my fellow commissioners. And I am just saying that there are a lot of components that I see relative to policy, relative to budget process, that I think having discussions on would be better. Ask the question, do we all know what budget is? Do we all know that we have to set a levy? Yes, we do. Do you want to look at our history with regard to the process that we follow in doing that and the depth of discussion and rolling up our sleeves? We came to last year's budget with an outline that was presented initially.
I feel like we're straying a little bit here, though.
I'm trying to give an example why this is important.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That we got to a budget process, and the way we deal with the budget process is to say, how much labor are we going to use? Are we going to use this much or this much to reduce it? And what that says is that we should have an understanding of what we've done departmentally to see and discuss those issues. I mean, I'm using it as an example, but I'm just saying it has value. It's not like this has to be done right away.
No, I'm just trying to figure out what more we'll gain, so I'm.
Well, I think, this is where Ehlers are going to step in and say, this is where we're going to help you. We want a construction policy. Any new construction, even redoing a room, whatever, if we bring in construction people, we're going to have a policy. We write what we think is a reasonable policy, and they said they will help review it with us. Maybe we missed a point, whatever. So I think we're at a point now where we're ready to move on making policies, aren't we?
I thought so.
Minister Treble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it was my understanding that because it was a strategic plan priority, that it was my role to implement the items within the strategic plan, which policy updates were part of. So I've been moving forward with working and partnering with HR, with MIS, and now with our auditor on updating our policies. What I haven't done, however, is bring kind of our broader plan of how we're going about updating policies. So if that's something that would be helpful to have a discussion at the committee of the whole. For example, one of the things that I'm working with MIS on is creating a SharePoint site so that basically how we store our policies and what that looks like and how staff can access policies. I can bring some information about what we're doing operationally as we update our policies and ensure that we've got commissioners' input and feedback on what that process is going to be, if that's helpful. I see that as a little bit separate from the discussion today regarding the proposal from Ehlers. I'm happy to pause that too, if that's what the board would like to do. But I just wanted to offer that I'm more than happy to add a policy update, just kind of a holistic update on what we're doing in administration related to our policies at a committee of the whole, if that's helpful.
Commissioner Mills, you're frowning.
Well, I'm thinking.
You're thinking.
I'm trying to understand, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Gamble, you had your hand up?
I was just going to say that visioning is hugely important, and certainly leadership in the context of what has been in place, strategic plan, whatever it might be, community sessions, that sharing vision and understanding and having that perspective is hugely important. And I think other than the generic context of policy and updates and the strategic plan, that we could move forward, but I think that understanding and seeing vision from leadership's role is an important part on the part of decision makers.
What would be the wishes of the board?
I'd just like to see it be on the next committee of the whole and
The next committee of the whole?
and have a discussion with some of the things, the overall vision. I think those components that you mentioned are components. The overall thing is of what I envision here in these areas relative to what we need to do. We're creating structure, and understanding that structure in the policy area is a huge thing. Given Ehlers' credentials, given Ehlers, given conversation we had, this is how I think that they can done it. Now we have a context that I think is broader in perspective and sees that vision through eyes that have put it in place. That would be my recommendation.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Gamble, because this is a financial policy, do you have an expectation that Ehlers would come, or there would be further information also provided from the Auditor Treasurer's Office at our Committee of the Whole meeting?
This isn't necessarily all financial focused.
So I think Madam Chair?
Multiple, yeah.
I think
Two
we're
pieces.
talking about two different pieces. One
Yeah.
would be kind of an overall discussion around our policy development and our strategy at the county. The second would be the Ehlers proposal. So I wonder, given the discussion today, if we have the broader discussion around our policy development strategy at a committee of the whole, and we add the Ehlers proposal to our next board meeting so that there's an opportunity for any discussions or any questions that need to happen before the meeting to be answered, and put that on for a decision at the next meeting. So two separate items.
I would agree, but from my perspective, but
That sounds reasonable.
Okay.
So we'll look forward then to Administrator Treble kind of outlining all of this for the Committee of the Whole.
Yes.
All right. Excuse me. And the Ehlers proposal would be discussed then at the board meeting after that.
Correct. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
when is the next Committee of the Whole?
In
Give me
July.
just a second. Yes, July 21st. And so the Ehlers proposal would be on the July 14th board meeting, and the policy discussion on the 21st, if that is acceptable to the board.
I think when we were at the nuts and bolts, Ehlers had come up and said that they were having, conversations with you on that, and certainly their respected organization. I think that the discussion, as you outlined it, and then this is my response and proposal in connection with that, is exactly what I think would be good.
Minister Treble, do you have any updates?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a couple updates. I wanted to mention that Mitch Travis and I presented to the City Council last Wednesday at the board's request to ask them to assist in funding for the HKGI proposal to update the Sawtooth Park Master Plan. So we presented, there was about an hour-long discussion, so it was a very engaged discussion. They they did not support the request that we brought before them for funding, so they declined. Some of their reasoning behind that is they were not certain that it was needed or wanted by community members in Grand Marais. They felt that providing funding for this could likely open up the door for additional funding requests in the future, which I did speak to and said that that there is potential for that. This was just the first step in updating the master plan. And then mentioned that it was not one of their 2026 identified city priorities. Mayor Benson spoke to that and said that she talked about the fact that it wasn't one of their city priorities because it wasn't a city-led initiative. It would be a county-led initiative, but that was the discussion. Commissioner Gamble was in attendance as well and at that meeting. And so I don't have identified next steps for this yet. There is a Parks and Trails meeting, I think it's next Tuesday.
Tonight?
Or
Tonight.
tonight? Okay,
Yeah.
tonight, where it will be discussed. But I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that this did go back to the city council, and that's the action that they decided to take at this time. Next, I wanted to mention that yesterday we had our courthouse space planning workshop. So our architects were here. It was an all-day event where we met with our division directors and commissioners to learn more about our current and our future planning needs for this facility. And it was the first of 4 different meetings that we'll have with them. And so the next meeting, we're hoping will be sometime at the beginning of August, and at that time, they will have some actual mock-ups of what the space needs and options might be. So at that point, we'll bring in our departments as well. I have communicated with the division directors and departments and have asked that they solicit input from their staff so that we can make sure that that voice is heard throughout this process as well. So that continues to move forward. And then lastly, on Friday is our ribbon cutting for the Grand Marais Transfer Station. We're very excited about that. That will be from 10 to 1, and food will be provided very generously by North Shore Waste. And we'll have a short program at 10:30 with a few speakers. So if you can make it to that event, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Thank you on that.
Yeah.
We'll move on to employee concern, commissioner's concern, meeting reports. I guess I will start with my latest meeting, which was our district meeting in Lutsen. It was well attended. Folks had a chance to socialize the night before at Charlie's, and then the next morning we met at the Caribou Highlands event room. People enjoyed the scenery, enjoyed the trip up, and one of the quotes, because we were given quite a few quotes, but one of the quotes I thought I took a picture of, there's a difference between believing something and achieving something. Yeah, that was a pretty good quote, I thought. We all gave our updating reports, and one thing that was definitely through all of the counties was our budget concerns, especially with human resources, Medicare, child, SNAP, all of that. But in all AMC gave a great report from all the government angle and gave us updatings and what they're still working on and all of that. So it was a fast-moving meeting with a nice lunch provided afterwards. So that was my take on it all, just to be with the folks and hear what's going on in all the counties. Anyone else on that?
Bravo on lining it up. And Janet.
Well, mostly.
Any other updating from anyone? Commissioner White?
I just tuned into a part of the city council meeting just towards the end, and a statement that Mike Roth made was that he was questioning the viability of our joint powers agreements, and thinking about that, and he stated that we've had a lot of leadership change in the past few years, which would probably have contributed to this. But I think that we should put this down as a priority or something very important, that we need to get together with the city council people and have conversations about the future, well, not just of the county, of how we're going to, or not going to, work together on projects. We're a small county and there's only limited funds, but I think we should try to work in collaboration with them on when we have projects that would be beneficial or something that's a problem for both of these entities. I don't know how to do that, but some sort of a gathering with food. So, that's my thought.
Administrator Trouble.
Thank you. So when I started in this role, Rena Rogers did share with me that there were several meetings regarding several of the joint powers and steps that the county and the city were trying to take as we move forward. And so as I've been working and meeting with Administrator Roth, we kind of put together a prioritization list of how to tackle these. And the first one that we decided to work on was the law enforcement contract, because that was the closest to getting to the finish line. And Rowan Watkins worked on that as well when he was in the interim role. And so we've had several meetings with both Sheriff Eliason before he retired, and now Sheriff Hallberg and Attorney Peterson as well. And so we've met with Administrator Roth and their attorney, and we're close to the finish line. We've got another meeting, I think it's next Monday, if I'm not mistaken. It's next Monday, and we're hoping that we'll complete that and have that to bring forward to the board. So I just wanted to make sure, because we haven't talked about that as a council, so I wanted to make sure that you're aware that we are working on these. However, I'm not opposed to the idea of bringing together the joint powers, which would include commissioners and city councilors, as well as we work on the future joint powers agreements.
And we have completed with the renewal or of the highway contract with the city. That was taken care of first. So that's 2 down. And the third one was the contract with the YMCA. And that was brought up 4 years ago. That needs to be reviewed, and so, okay.
The library, too, I think, is on the list.
Library.
Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I would just comment relative to the district meeting that it's always good to have discussions with fellow commissioners from other counties within our area, our region, and that AMC continues to be a real benefit to counties. Their advocacy on our behalf, they alluded to in their presentations that major media and other organizations recognize their credibility. And so they're not just an organization that is under an umbrella, they are an organization that is an umbrella, and we really benefit from them. The other thing I would say to Commissioner White's point is that I think it's imperative, and I had attended a NACO conference in my first term on how to build resiliency within your county, and it addressed that issue of partnerships. With counties, which we only have one bordering county, but we have a relationship with Carleton County that is a very good one in the under Public Health Human Services. The more that we can establish partnerships with city and other entities, that's why the leadership meeting is important, so that we hear one another, so that there isn't a redundancy, because we can't all be doing the same thing. It's just good to have a discussion and understand where can we find some economies of scale that not decrease our ability to serve our community, but actually enhance it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, we had the TAC Harbor presentation from Stantec at the EDA the day before. They presented down at Schroeder Town Hall, and there was nothing mind-blowing in the presentation. Two different visions or ideas. One more of in taking more advantage of the industrial nature of the zoning there. It's a rarity in the county, and then another one being more of a mixed use. Both had housing, both had different marina services. It's just kind of the emphasis on what the commercial would be and what's that scale, but probably the most impressive, in my mind, the most impressive aspect was the participation of that advisory group that worked on all of these things. They, I think, were initially asked just to bring their ideas, write them down, bring them, and then when they combined them, they saw overlap or differences, right? And then they kind of worked through all that. They had education initially, just about the site, what's physically possible, what would be required, and that kind of thing, different restrictions. So I haven't checked. They said it was going to be online. I bet you anything it is right now. And I'll check when I'm passing the baton here. But it was just good to wrap that up and to try to figure out what our next steps are going to be. They provided a slew of different grant opportunities that we're going to need a champion to go after, and that was kind of the thing. If anything is to happen, there needs to be a champion. And it's not like a person, but an organization that's going to be making efforts in this direction. EDA seems like an appropriate champion. There hasn't been any decision or more discussion about that afterwards. But yeah, it's just the first step, very generic step, but good. So pleased working with Stantec. And is that the whole thing?
I think so.
June 16th, yep.
Yep, it's under the June 16th meeting materials, though.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Relative to Taconite Harbor, that in the EDA presentation, which I had attended both of them, but the EDA presentation, the two gentlemen from Minnesota Power who attended, and I had a discussion with them afterward in the foyer, and I said probably the most frustrating thing was just having an entity that owns the property that doesn't clearly define necessarily outcomes. It's sort of, you don't know. I mean, we're spending a lot of money to move things around with ideas, but it's all predicated on whether Minnesota Power says yay or nay to it. And in some discussions with Lucas and EDA relative to, if Minnesota Power really, it's all about money, then they might have just as a courtesy given us the opportunity to evaluate this, but really they just want to see where they can get the most money. And that wasn't the sense that you got in talking with them. The reason I say that is that if Minnesota Power says, well, you've gone through your process or whatever, we need to move forward, we have more regulation, we have more opportunities we need to act on, and therefore the financial component is more important than the commitment to community, then you would get in a bidding process so that there can be a sense that, from our standpoint, if the EDA were to take it and say, well, if we could buy it, then we'd have control of it, then we could do what we want to do with it. So I think that's simply to say that who we are dealing with Minnesota Power, who has jurisdiction, that it's important to understand where they're coming from, so we just know whether it's all, again, a word we're using, in good faith. And
yeah.
So it was good to have that discussion.
Yeah, they've been really cooperative and forthcoming, and one of the ideas that was brought forward from Director Wakefield was purchasing a right of first refusal or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give some kind of assurance that whatever efforts we are bringing forward, we would have an opportunity to act on. But that's kind of just kind of hanging it out there a little bit more than some might be comfortable with right now too. So yeah, we'll just kind of see where potential funding is and what kind of conversations they can have. But yeah, I agree. The intentions of Minnesota Power seem pretty darn friendly, and there have been concerns from myself included just about the change in ownership, BlackRock buying Elite and Elite owning Minnesota Power, but so far so good.
Any other meeting updates? Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had an opportunity to have a couple of additional meetings with the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness Collaborative. You may have heard or seen in social media or news last night. It was the lead story on KBJR that the Forest Service is examining the recommendations that our group has made to them for changes in permitting. And so this is primarily going to impact cancellation policies. And there's a public comment period that goes from yesterday until July 22nd. So if you go to the U.S. Forest Service website, there's an opportunity to read the press release and to provide public comment. And the basic idea of this is just to encourage people to cancel early, not leave permits on the table. An early cancellation allows permits to go through the system and to be redistributed. It also really impacts our economy here in Cook County because lodges, guides, retailers have a chance to staff up, prepare gear, book confidently, and it really helps our small businesses up the trail to be successful. So I would encourage individuals to read the press release, the information on cancellation, what percentage of your cancellation fee you get back at certain time periods, and to make a public comment by July 22nd. Again, it's important for the economy of our county.
Do you know how long it takes for a cancellation to go through currently?
It does. It takes 24 hours for it to go through the system.
Oh.
And part of the trouble is people are absolutely not canceling at all.
Oh.
Or they cancel the day before. Well, if you live in Wisconsin or you live in Texas, you can't plan a trip, get your permit, get ready, and roll. You need more time. So this encourages people to cancel within 28 days of their entry, and they get 50% of their money back. And then with a month, people can potentially use that permit. There's a lesser percentage to get back, 25%, if you complete your cancellation between 28 days and 3 days of your entry point. And then if you don't, or you do it in the last couple of days, there's no money you would get back. So it's just a financial incentive to allow these permits to go through and to get used.
I definitely understand the importance of the economic, the impact. I would say that I've taken advantage of being local and being able to snap up because some of those lakes you can't get a permit on.
Yeah.
Even if you're the same day that it opens. But then if you're checking throughout, sometimes, you can.
And part of it is building this in, if these changes, depending on what happens with public comment, if they're reviewed and put into place, they will impact us starting in 2027. So that's the time frame for the change, should it occur.
Did they have any statistics to show what?
There was a lot of data presented
Yeah.
from outfitters, from the U.S. Forest Service as well. Thousands and thousands of permits that are just left on the table. It's really unfortunate. And so we hope that that will be one of several changes that will come about as a result of this group meeting. But anyway, pleased to see that the Forest Service listened and is trying to follow through with their promise. We appreciate it. We had our second subordinate governmental service district meeting. Commissioner White was there in attendance with me as well, and our MIS department, the Auditor's Treasurer's Office, and the Highway Department were there to make sure that everybody in attendance kind of understood what those internal issues are that we have here at the county. And then they released a list of upcoming meeting topics. So there'll be one topic for every meeting coming up: costs, taxes, and fairness, county responsibility and jurisdictional confusion, maintenance quality and service level, governance, transparency and decision-making, legal liability and compliance concerns, and access and essential services. And then after all of that information is gathered and discussed, then we'll look at what direction do we take for the future. But very, very good meeting.
Is there a good vibe from
Yeah,
the
yeah,
non-county
I think it's
participants?
really appreciated, it's well-attended, and really appreciate taking the time to take potentially up to a year to examine all the different issues that are there and come up with a reasonable solution. Absolutely. We had our North Span Community Action Meeting last Wednesday, and we had the topic of housing coming up. And what was interesting is that there were some individuals at that meeting that also were in attendance yesterday at our facilities meeting. And thinking of housing, we talked a lot about housing at our District 1 meeting also. And it was really recognized that we've done, as a county, an outstanding job of increasing the number of units available for our workforce through both the Gunflint View and through the Heights. And there was a request by a number of commissioners to have our HRA director and Gary Latz as the lead on the Heights project to come and present at the AMC annual meeting in December. So no details have been developed. We haven't had a full discussion about it, but that was a request that was made. So I wanted you to all be aware of that. And then the Cook County Historical Society met, and they have submitted a grant for $195,000 for funds to help them with the renovation of Chippewa City Church. And so they're waiting more feedback on that. And then we talked a little bit about the continuing issue of shingles coming off the roof and some of the needs for painting. And Brooke Lessard, our facilities manager, will be attending next month to the Historical Society meeting to give them an update. We had our Cook County Invasiv Team Brewery event last Saturday. We had 300 people come to learn about invasive species, both terrestrial and aquatic. It was, again, not only well-attended, but just a really fun event, and appreciate all the work that Abigail Prom and Tia Parks and our highway engineer, Robbie, spent putting that event together. It was just very, very well done. And lastly, yesterday, the AMC Solid Waste Work Group met. There are about 25 of us that meet on a very regular basis. And we had an opportunity over the last week or so to read a report that was put out about solid waste from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And I've asked our county administrator to forward that document. It's a very light read, 358 pages. But AMC is asking all 87 counties to submit a letter in talking about the impact of this on our counties, and also talking about the fact that there is some information in that report that is not accurate. And I will be sharing information with all of you about that. I'm happy to draft a letter and share it with Commissioner Storley and our county administrator to then distribute to everybody. But as of right now, they're closing their public comment period July 7th for a report that's 358 pages that we just got. The report came out 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And so we have requested AMC, as well as a number of other groups around the state, to extend that by 60 days. But I am working on a draft letter. We'll send you the document so you have time to look at it. And it really needs a personal response, because part of what is in this report focuses on issues that are very pertinent to the metro area and really don't relate well to the rest of rural Minnesota. And so we need to drive home our message about how we deal with our waste and the impacts that this will have on the future of waste management. They're talking about, closing landfills throughout the state. I understand that. There is a lot of research behind that. Europe has basically closed all their landfills, but we need to think about a timeline for that and roll that out appropriately and think about funding and how we're going to adjust to things like that. So anyway, it's a lot, 358 pages to read, but you will get that document later today, and I'll be working with us as a board to respond to the report.
So I appreciate that. It might be helpful, given the number of pages on it and the timeline, if you could direct us to those sections of concern.
Yeah, and there is no executive summary. That is another unfortunate piece with this, but I will do that. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, it'd be good, because we should, look at the areas of concern that affect us.
And again, there is nothing about any kind of financial assistance as we move forward, and that's a huge piece for rural districts, so I will send you that info.
Commissioner White?
2 things. 5 o'clock, Hoveland Town Hall. Engineer Hess will be there and there'll be some food, not a meal, but some food to talk about all of the road projects on the east end of the county. So it's from 5 to 7, Hoveland Town Hall. And then this Saturday up in Grand Portage, they have their wellness fair, which is from 10 to 2:30. And it is an opportunity to just see all of the different entities in the county, actually, that provide services and information to help people live well in this county. Plus, as always, they feed all the participants at the end of the affair, so that's it.
Commissioner Mills, did you have anything else?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Just the conversation around solid waste and some of the updates we got at AMC regarding HERC. And it's just interesting. I was raised and educated that incineration is very, very dirty and you don't want to burn your trash, but that's
part of what's in the report. It says it's, dirty. It is cleaner air when it comes out than when it goes in.
Yeah, and that is incredible. It then made me think, why did we build a transfer station instead of an incinerator? But, I mean,
Well,
how much would that cost?
You have to think about scale and where we live and the cost of these. And that's part of what needs to be discussed and involving all counties around the state.
The tour of the Alexandria facility, which is incinerating, and that was amazing. And because 3M is a big employer there, I think I mentioned this earlier after taking that tour, 3M took their plant out of South America and brought it back up to Alexandria because they had that source of energy through the incineration. Pretty amazing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to follow up on that, our policy committee meeting this fall will be in Bemidji, and our AMC Solid Work Group is going to do a PowerPoint presentation and a panel discussion for you at that event.
Good. Anything else for updates? I'll move on then. Just a couple of highlights of observation. Independence Day, July 4th, is on a Saturday, but they take Friday off, so the courthouse will be closed on Friday, the July 3rd. And then our next board meeting will be Tuesday, July 14th. That's the way it falls on the calendar. We have correspondence, memos, and information from the State Demographer Center, and also correspondence from the Schroeder Area Historical Society. And lastly, before I adjourn our meeting, we kind of had heard that the United States is celebrating 250 years. I have a proclamation in regards to that. Whereas July 4th, 2026 marks the semi-centennial anniversary of the founding of the United States of America. Commemorating 250 years, since the nation's Declaration of Independence, and whereas this milestone offers an opportunity for reflection on the shared ideals of liberty, representative democracy, and community responsibility that have guided the nation across the generations. And whereas communities across the country, including counties, cities, tribal nations, continue to carry forward these principles in a time of rapid global change, technological advance, environmental challenges, and ongoing efforts to promote unity, understanding, and civic well-being, and resilience, and diversity, and engagement of its people, Cook County recognizes that these moments of uncertainty are met with collaboration, service, and a commitment to the common good. And whereas the semi-quincentennial invites residents of all ages to reflect upon our history, honor those who have shaped our communities, and look forward with a purpose to the next 250 years. And whereas Cook County joins counties nationwide in marking this anniversary with public education, community engagement, and opportunities for residents to participate in commemorative activities. Now, therefore, the Cook County Board of Commissioners hereby recognizes July 4th, 2026 as the shared past, celebrate our present, and contribute to a future that reflects the highest of our ideals in democracy. And there being no further business, we are adjourned.
Thank you for